Ruth Kassoy.
Okay, and what was your name when you were born?
Ruth Cohen.
And where were you born?
In Chelsea,
Chelsea,
I think, Mass.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
All right. And what's your birthday?
June 20th, June 18th, 1920.
Okay. What's your Hebrew name?
Rachel. My mother was Sadie Janowski, and my father was Max Cohen. And they met in Boston at a dance, and they got married. And they had let's see, 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy. I had a sister Evelyn, a sister Goldie. I have a brother Hyman, and Charlotte, Evelyn, Goldie, and Hyman, and myself.
So you're the youngest?
I was next to the youngest. My father was a tailor.
Okay.
Came from the old country.
Which old country?
From Russia. My mother lived in Russia, but she came to the state with her brother had come to America, and they brought her over. And she was a wig maker, and she, used to make the peruques for the Jewish ladies and all that.
Oh, so they didn't show their hair.
Yeah, and she came to Boston, and I think she lived in Quincy. My dad was, he was a great guy. Yeah, he loved his children, and he used to like to play the piano and sing. He was talented, and he and my mother had a good life.
Your oldest sister again, her name?
My Goldie.
Goldie?
Yeah.
How much older is she than you?
Well, I'm 81. I think she just passed. She passed away recently, and I think she's about 80. She was about 85.
And she remained in Boston?
No, she lived in Revere. As a matter of fact, the family moved to we all moved to Revere at one point, and she played the piano and sang and used to put on shows, and she was quite a girl. She married and had 2 daughters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their names?
Marilyn Bluestein and Joanne Heichman. One lives in Winthrop and one lives in Stoughton.
Her married name? Her married name
Her name was Broomfield, Goldie Broomfield. The next sister was also liked to dance and do shows and everything. And she Evelyn Goldberg.
Okay.
And she lived in Revere.
Okay. And Mr. Goldberg, did they have children?
Yes, they had 2 daughters,
Their names?
Marlene and Susan. One lives in New York, very successful. One lives on the Cape.
Their last names?
Goldberg. Neither one are married.
And the next sibling? Their husband and children?
They don't have any children. And my Goldie doesn't have. Goldie has 2 of my nieces never married, and Goldie had 2, Marilyn and Joanne, my sister's children.
Tell me what it was like growing up when you were here.
It was marvelous. We were on the beach all the time. My mother used to bring us to the beach early morning, Revere Beach. She'd come at lunchtime and bring us lunch, and we used to spend lots of time there. And we had a wonderful family because my oldest sister and my brother, they used to play the piano, and my oldest sister, my youngest sister used to be they used to go out on jobs like bar mitzvahs and things like that. And my sister Evelyn and I used to tap dance. And when the relatives came, my father would yell downstairs, "Come on up, they're all here." We used to come up, and everyone shuffled off to Buffalo. We got in, did our thing, and really had a wonderful time, and everyone liked to come to our house. We were poor, but we were rich, and everyone that came, they used to come and sit, and we put a floor show on for them, and it was great.
When did you marry?
60 years ago.
Okay. And how did you meet Mr.
Kassoy, he lived next door to me,
Okay.
in Revere on Thornton Street. Yeah, moved in, and and he found me.
Okay. Do you remember your first date?
What?
Do you remember your first date?
Well, I don't know, the first date, yeah.
Where'd you go?
We met in the hallway.
The hallway?
No. No, we went out, and, and I feel very sad because he passed away not too long ago, and we had a wonderful life.
When did you marry?
Let's see, February 8th, and we were just married 60 years.
And you married in Revere?
In Revere, yeah. And unfortunately, my father was very ill, so he and I got married at my father's bedside. And it was,
And how many children did you have?
I have 4. No, Ricky, there's Ricky, Rick,
There's
Elaine, there's Iris, and and Jerry.
Okay.
4 great kids. A screwy mother, but my retainer isn't too good.
What did your husband do?
My husband was in the cosmetic business, and we worked together. We used to go to work together every day, and spent a lot of time with him.
As manufacturing, sales?
A retail store in Hoffman's. It was a store in Lynn that the ladies used to come from everywhere to our shop there.
Do you have any favorite stories about your grandson, the honoree, and his bar mitzvah, or any particular tales you'd like to tell about your son Jerry?
Oh, Jerry. Jerry I love him. He was the best kid you ever want to know, even at that time. And all the mothers used to call me and say, "How's Jerry?" We love Jerry. He's the love of my life.
Is there anything you'd like to say to your grandson on this bar mitzvah?
Well, I wish him good health and a happy life. Because he's a wonderful child. Unfortunately, I don't see him too often, but he's there.
My full name is Norman Leon Hosansky. When I was born, I was given the name of Leon Norman Hosansky, but nobody ever called me Leon. So I don't know what happened. I'm Norman Hosansky. I was named after my father's father, Levi Nuchem. Ben. I'm Levi Nuchem Ben, the son of Dov Bear. And Benjamin is Dov Bear, so I'm his grandfather, I'm also his son. And he might mention that if you talk to him. Born in New York City.
And when?
1924. Same year as Harry Belafonte. We never met, but we have something in common.
Can you say?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right.
No, sir. 2 brothers.
Their names?
Mel was the middle one, who died a long time ago now, and Eugene, still alive, thank God, and he lives within walking distance of where we all grew up, in Jamaica, New York. My father's name was Benjamin, and my mother's name was Fanny.
Her maiden name?
Juro, Jurow. She was the youngest of about 12 or 13 children.
Next we'd ask you, do you remember all your aunts and uncles?
No, I remember we were very close to my father had a brother, an older brother, who actually lived in Columbus for many, many years, and an older sister who we were very close with. We always went there for Pesach. And I was very close with her, my Aunt Luba's children, and still am somewhat, at least to those who are still alive. My mother's, there were so many of them, and she was the youngest. By the time I was aware, some of the older ones were, I don't know, either dead or very old, very old. But a few of the younger ones I remember. There was an Uncle Louis, there was an Uncle Sam, and an Uncle Shmuel. There was an Aunt Manya, and there was an Uncle Bill, Aunt Bella, but that was not the sisters. No, that's about all I can remember. You know, if you didn't hit me with them all of a sudden, I might be able to remember more. Grew up in Queens, my father was a dentist, and the first office I remember was above a drugstore in a little house, and then we had an apartment house, and the office was part of it. We were on one side of the apartment house, then we moved to the other, and then we stepped up in the world. I think he started making money, real money, just before the war, during wartime. And then we moved to a fancy apartment house. It was fancy. It was a half a block from the elevated train. So that used to keep me awake, but it was fancy. Across the street from a tennis court. The tennis court stayed there a few years. My brother and I played there, and then it was turned into another apartment house. So it was a very fancy neighborhood for the time. I'm the oldest, so the middle one, as a matter of fact, his wife is here, died in 1990, so 12 years now. And then my younger brother still lives in the area. He couldn't make it. He just became a grandfather himself. It was a very Jewish neighborhood. I was a very good student, so I had no problem in school. The teachers said something I could remember and give it back to her. I was really not a scholar. I was, a student type. I was somewhat pretty shy as a kid growing up, so I didn't have any great friends or many friends. I used to have one or two friends, and we used to hang out. I went to school. When I was about, 6 or 7, I started going Hebrew school, 4 to 6, 4 days a week. And then we went to shul Saturday morning. I went to Sunday school until I was probably 16 or 17. It was not terribly exciting, but I kind of enjoyed it. I wouldn't want to repeat it. Yes, I remember 2 things about my mitzvah. One thing I was very angry about. I was the only person I know, and I still am the only person I know, who wasn't allowed to chant his Haftorah. My voice, according to the cantor, was so terrible, or my ear was so terrible, he said, no way, you can read it, but don't chant it. And the other thing I remember is after I said my speech, whatever it was, there's some of my cousins applauded, and I had never heard that. I went to college. I went to Queens College, which was a commuter college near where I lived in Flushing. And then I went to Columbia University for a year, got a master's. Then I worked a couple of years at New Brunswick, New Jersey. I think I got married during that time. Then I went back to school, Rutgers University, got a PhD in chemistry. Then got a job in Jersey City. Was there 10 years, had 2 children. My wife died. I remarried Gladys. I married Gladys after 3 years. Then I moved to Columbus, Ohio. In 1963, got a job with Chemical Abstracts and was there 25, 26 years. I met my wife on a blind date. I was living with 3 other fellows. And one of them was getting married, and his wife knew, her name was, she lived in the Bronx. I was living in New Brunswick, and we met, can't remember exactly, I saw her come off the bus, and I think it was winter because she was wearing a cloth coat. I helped her off the bus, and when I did that, she said, I knew we were for each other. We went to, I think, some foreign movie or something. In those days, I didn't have very much money. So anyhow, that's how it started.
What did she do?
She was a secretary. I can't remember. I think she worked on 57th Street in New York. Then we got married. We moved to Newark. We moved to Newark, New Jersey, and she got a job with Johnson & Johnson. And I was working, she was working at Johnson & Johnson while I was going to school. And I still had some money left from GI Bill, because I was in the service for 3 years. And so we were able to get along pretty well. Then I got some money from Squibb while I was going for my PhD. So we scraped together. We managed to scrape together.
And you said you had
two children. After I finished my PhD, we moved to Newark. And we had 2 children, 1954, Marcia from Cincinnati, and 1956, Stuart he's in Philadelphia now.
I was going to ask,
Okay.
You said you came to Columbus because of chemical abstract?
Yeah, changed jobs. I didn't like the job at all at Jersey City. It didn't pay very much. I was doing research, and I was not a research chemist.
I asked about your parents, I asked about your grandparents. You told me where you were married. Do you have any particular stories you'd like to tell about your children? What were they like growing up?
They were very nice, and my second wife was very supportive because I lived on the 8th floor of the 13th-story apartment house in Newark, and Gladys, who I married, lived on the 2nd floor. And Gladys was divorced at the time. As a matter of fact, her first husband is here. So interesting, because she had 2 children with Ira, with her first husband. She had Alan, who's about 11 months older than my older child, Marcia, and she had Felice, who you know. And one of the things I remembered after my wife died and we started seeing each other, Marcia, who was maybe 5, 6 years old, would take Stuart, who was 2 years younger, and they would take the elevator and go downstairs to visit Gladys and her 2 children. That was one of the things that I remember. Growing up, I was working. I really don't have, unfortunately, many memories of them. And Gladys may have many more. What do I want to say? To him, I say I wish I lived long enough to see what he does with his life. Because he's really I love all my grandchildren, and they're all different, but he's somewhat special. I think he has a special talent. He's especially sensitive boy. He's, the most recent thing I know is he and a good friend of his tried out for the tennis team. He made it, his friend Charlie didn't. The first thing Ben did was call his friend and express his disappointment that both of them couldn't make his team. He's very good that way. He's a talented boy. He's a very creative and just a nice kid. I hope he stays that way. I told him there's a word that I just ran across. It's a common word, a mensch, to be a mensch. And I send him these words every once in a while. And I wished him just this past week that he's a mensch today, and he should always remain a mensch. That's what I wish for you, Benny. Okay? And he carries my father's name, so he has a heavy burden.
All right, Gladys Hosansky.
And what was your name when you were born?
Gladys Goldfarb. Goldfarb. Go on.
Where were you born?
Bronx, New York.
And when were you born?
I brought on the crash January 17th, 1929.
Okay.
When I came in, everything went.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Right now, 1 and 1. I started out with 2 brothers and 1 sister, but we lost 1. Yes, I was named after my father's mother.
Her name?
Her name was Geshe. That's Yiddish. There's no such thing as Hebrew names, years ago.
Did you know her?
No, no, she never came to the States.
Okay, where was your father's family from?
All, they're from, oh God, Lahersk, L-A, new word, H-E-R-S-K. I think it's in the Ukraine, but that was the name of the town.
And I'm sorry, your maiden name again?
Goldfarb.
And your mother's maiden name?
Winikoff, W-I-N-I-K-O-F-F.
And you know where her family was from?
Yes, they were also same place. I think the same town. I think that's, that's what used to happen.
Do you know how they met?
Yeah, my father was a Casanova.
Yeah? Okay.
He was. And he liked the young girls.
All right.
And I guess my mother was attractive, and I think they were first cousins, which accounts for my Michigas. No, what it does is it accounts for my hearing problem, because the 3 children all have hearing problems. And I believe that was a result of this first cousin marriage. I may be wrong, but anyway.
Did you know any of your grandparents?
Yes, I knew my mother's mother. She lived with us, and so that's where I learned my Yiddish, from sitting on her lap, and she never spoke English. So
Her name was?
her name was Pesha, P-E-S-H-A, or Pauline in English.
And her name, your mother's maiden name was?
Winikoff.
Do you know your grandmother's maiden name? Pesha's maiden name?
My grandmother's maiden name? No.
All right, tell me what it was like growing up with you and your brothers.
Well, I was the youngest. And,
How many, who's the oldest?
oh, the oldest is my brother Irving, who's here. And next came my sister, B, who is here also. And then we had another brother who died at age 24 in service. He was flying B-29s or something. And anyway, and so there were 2 years difference between the first 2, and then there was 5 years later that my brother who died came, and I was number 4. I was the mistake. They needed me like a hole in the head. My father was originally a tailor, worked in the garment district, and then things went bad, and an uncle of mine wanted to open a retail business and asked my father to come in with him. And that's what Pop did. They had a stationery store. And that's what he did. That was in Harlem. He was in Harlem for 40 years or something like that.
And your mother?
Mom worked with him in the business. I went to school in the Bronx. I was graduated from William Howard Taft High School, which was brand new. And then I went to Hunter. I went to Hunter College. Yeah.
What did you study?
What did I study? I studied whatever gals of my age studied, most of them, either teaching or nursing. I mean, that was what was open to us. And I wasn't smart enough to become, an attorney or whatever.
So you went into...
Oh, I'm sorry. So I taught.
Okay.
I taught school. I met Norm and where or when?
Where and when?
Where and when? Met Norm. He was living on the 8th floor of a big apartment house, and I was living on the 2nd floor. And Sherry died, his wife, first wife died, and my husband took a walk. He's here. You could interview him.
I believe he's next, Mr. Roberts.
Right.
Okay. And?
So anyway, so I was available, Norm was available, and a mutual friend said to Norm, why didn't you ask Gladys out? So he did, and here I am. Oh, that's a wonderful question. I have 4 beautiful, wonderful children. And the eldest is Alan. He's in St. Louis, married to Marla, and has 2 daughters. Next comes Marcia. She lives in Cincinnati, married with 2 children, a boy and a girl. And the next one is Felice. Right. Okay. And the bottom one, Stuart.
Okay.
You have it all, so what are you asking me?
Well, yeah, I'd like to
Yeah,
know.
okay.
Tell me what they were like when they were children growing up. And you can be honest.
They were wonderful. I was a little cuckoo. I taught for many years, 17 years, in the Mifflin Middle School in Columbus. Right. That's where most of my experiences took place, was at Mifflin Middle. Because of my hearing problem, I never felt that I could go into a classroom situation. So what I did was I worked with children individually, one-to-one. And that was, because then I could hear them, they could hear me, and I was helping kids with problems.
And your husband told me why you moved to Columbus because of his job. You moved to Columbus because of...
His job, right. He won't lie.
I was going to ask you, do you have any favorites? Well, I could ask you, favorite stories about Alan and Marcia and Felice and Stuart. We could be here all night, right?
They're all what?
No, we could be here all night if we start telling you stories about all of them. Do you think there's any story in particular that Ben would be interested in? Like Uncle Alan's bar mitzvah?
Oh, Uncle Alan's.
Remember Uncle Alan's bar mitzvah?
Are you kidding me?
No?
I don't remember what I did 3 seconds ago.
Okay.
Ay.
Talk to me about your grandson. Tell me about
He, you know what a gem is? That's what he is. He's really, really a gem. He's a feeling person. He's bright. He's loving. He's just everything rolled into one. He's just a wonderful youngster. And we feel very, very fortunate with this kid because he really is wonderful. We love him.
Would you like to say something to him?
To Benjamin, first of all, you did a good job, Ben. So far, we'll have to wait till tomorrow. And you're just a wonderful kid. He's just a joy. He's a joy. Bright, loving, but sincerely loving. I mean, it's not just, put on. He's just, you're a good kid, Ben. We love you.
My name is Ira. My name is Ira Clyde Robbins. I was born in the Bronx, New York, in 1925.
Your birthday is?
July 9th. My parents were Frida and Bertram Robbins. Okay? They were born in this country. I am a second generation American. United we stand.
Do you remember your grandparents? Did you know?
My grandmother brought me up. My maternal grandmother brought me up. Her name was Anna Spiegler, and she was born in Romania. And she reared me from the time I was 9 until she died when I was 26. My paternal grandparent was Ralph Robbins. He came from Russia, and very interestingly, and I don't know enough about this, he was a pharmacist in the United States. He had a brother, a granduncle, who was a physician who I knew, and he had another brother who was an attorney. And they were all born in Russia. So I think they must have been part of some immigration that took place in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, of an elite set of Russians that came here. Otherwise, I couldn't understand how they were all so well educated and professional in this country.
And everyone lived in New York?
Yes, all of those. My uncle, my granduncle, lived in Jersey City, where he was a physician. Yeah. Well, my father is an interesting person because he was the only child of my paternal grandparents, and I'm told he had a birth injury which somehow was responsible for giving him an intellectual deficit. Interestingly, my mother, who was born in this country, at age 12 had spinal meningitis, and so she was left totally deaf. And they both somehow met at a school for the hard of hearing, and I guess the grandparents arranged some kind of shidduch. Yeah. And of course, as I grew up, I often wondered what my protoplasm was going to... Seriously, I had a very significant inferiority complex when I was growing up. I really didn't think I was as great as I actually was. No. But as I say, my grandmother reared me and my brother until she deceased.
Your parents?
Well, my mother went to a state hospital, mental institution, at the time I was 9, and she died when I was 26, still in the institution. My father, who was very limited, worked for his father, who was a pharmacist, and he ran the fountain and the confections and so forth and so on. And I never lived with him after I was 9. I have one brother, Jules, who is 4.5 years younger than I am. And I kind of was a second father to him as we were growing up, because I was the only one who, in fact, just sitting at the table, I make a current faux pas. I sometimes call my brother by my son's name, and I sometimes call my son by my brother's name because of that kind of role reversal thing.
What was it like growing up?
Well, I think if you grew up in New York City, at that time, it was an adventure.
So this was
We're talking in the 30s, yeah, 30s and 40s. It was an adventure. I always knew that I was poor. Poor because we were on home relief. I was the recipient of Thanksgiving and Christmas baskets. Occasionally when I visited my friends, their parents, unbeknownst to me, would put coins in my pocket and so on. And I started to work at a fairly young age. First delivering chickens for the local kosher butcher, then working in the school library under the NYA, National Youth Administration. And then ultimately, as World War II began, and I was 16 years of age, I was the first high school student that was hired to be a page in the New York Public Library. And that job I carried on after I went to school from 5 to 10 at night, and I worked 20 hours a week. In addition to which, I managed to run on the track team for my high school as well. Yeah. And I used to practice at 10 o'clock at night after I got home, running through the city streets. And when I would show up at the track meet, the coach would say, "Who are you?" And I'd tell him who I was. And ultimately, I became their best 440 runner in high school, yeah.
you were too young to go into the war.
No, I went into the war. Yeah, I went into the war. I was drafted after being deferred for a year because I was the sole support of my grandparents. And I had a very unusual experience insofar as I went to basic training in Virginia, and because they give you a number of different MOSs, military occupational specialty, I could have been a musician because I worked for the library not only as a clerk, not only as a page, but later as a postal clerk. They sent me to postal school. And so when I graduated postal school, I was stationed in New York City at what was then the Hotel McAlpin, directly opposite Macy's. And I was there for about 8 months. Then went down to New Orleans and was trained to be a stevedore, waiting to go to the Eastern Theater, Pacific Theater, to invade Japan when the atom bomb was dropped. I decided to be a postal officer, a postal clerk. And I was in the Philippines and I was in Okinawa immediately after the cessation of hostilities. And then I came back, went to City College in New York, got a degree, and then got my master's degree in social work from the University of Pennsylvania. And my professional career has been essentially working as an administrator in children's institutions, either for institutions for delinquent children or institutions for emotionally disturbed kids, and then spend the last 20, 25 years as an administrator of Jewish nursing homes. And then I retired in 1988.
You got married at some point.
Oh, I got married 3 times.
So tell me the first one.
All right. The first marriage took place in 1951, and it took place immediately after my grandmother died. Because while my grandmother was living, I was her support, and I partially supported my brother. And as long as she lived, I didn't see it possible for me to get. She married, and I married Gladys, who is here. And we were married for about 7 or 8 years. And then we got divorced. My fault, okay. I married again and was married for 14 years. And then we got divorced, me again. And then I married Shirley, who is here, and we were married for 16 years. And then we got divorced, and then it was both of our faults. I had improved a little bit. And I decided that I wouldn't marry again because I believe 3 strikes and you're out. Yeah, right.
Tell me you had children.
Yes, I have 2 children, Felice, okay, and Alan, all right. Felice has 3 children, as you know, and Alan has 2 children, as you know. Well, I always refer to Ben as my favorite grandson, because he's my only one, right. And Ben is a very unusual boy. And I say that I'd like to live another 15 or 20 years just to see what he becomes, because he's so multifaceted with so many interests, and his curiosity on the one hand and his excitement on the other hand in doing things just literally blows me away.
Does he remind you of you?
Not particularly, although he attributed his sense of humor to me. I don't know. I'm known as a jokester with all the kids, and maybe I try to be deliberately funny when I'm with them. But no, he doesn't remind me of me. I don't know who he really is like. He's a very sociable and social kid, and he somehow is one of a kind. I mean, I don't know how to describe him. I think the only thing that he feels he's lacking is stature. He would like to be a little bit bigger and a little taller so he could deal with his athleticism. But he's a wonderful competitor and a wonderful athlete. It's just that he doesn't have the necessary heft to succeed. No, he's a remarkable young man, and I love him.
And you love him. You wish him well.
I wish him well. I don't have to wish him well. He's going to succeed without my wishes.
My name is Shirley Robbins.
Okay, tell me where and when you were born.
I was born in Beckley, West Virginia in 1940. I came through Beckley today to get here. In 1947, we moved to Virginia. My father had been a lawyer, and he wanted to be a farmer, so we moved to Goochland County, Virginia, outside of Richmond. And basically, I grew up there. I have one brother who's older and one sister who's younger.
Their names are?
Their names are, my brother's name is Dwight, and my sister's name is Mary. I am the middle child.
Okay.
Well, when I first met Ben, I saw him for just a few minutes, but it was in the middle of the night. I had come up to help Felice with the baby, and I was asleep in the downstairs in the basement on the sofa, the sleep sofa. And I was awakened when Jerry came and he said, "Granny, here he is." And so Ben was just a day or two old, and he slept right here all that night, and we bonded right from the beginning. Yeah. Well, that's, he had been married before, and we were working together, and we must have thought we were each just very attractive and exciting, because we did fall in love and got married, and I got 2 more children. I got Felice, Ben's mother. She was 19. And I got my only son, Alan, when he was 21. And I think that was the best thing that happened to me. And so we spent a lot of time together. I had 2 daughters by a previous marriage, Mary and Julie. And the 6 of us went on a honeymoon, and in fact, Alan was engaged to Marla at the time, so Marla went on our honeymoon with us. We had 5 children, and we just went to Washington for a long weekend. But we spent many vacations together. We all went to Jamaica. We all got together a lot, and I still, see my 2 older children and their families. And they've given me my 5 grandchildren, Ben and his 4 girl cousins. Ben's my only boy.
Is there anything you'd like to say to Ben? Wishing him well on this moment?
Ben, you've always been my bebop baby, and you always will. And I loved you from the first time I saw you. And I'm so delighted to be here. I'm honored to be your grandmother.
My name is Irving Goldfarb. I am a brother of his grandma.
That's right. Where
I was born on the Lower East Side,
Okay, when?
on Grant Street and Henry Street,
What's your birthday?
in December the 4th, 1915. That's a long time ago.
And who were you named after?
That is something that I really don't know. It must have been one of my grandparents or my great-grandparents.
What's your Hebrew name?
Itzhak,
Okay. And your father's name?
Bar David. I have two sisters, one who is the grandma and the other one who is B. And unfortunately, I had a brother who passed away right after World War II from conditions of the war. My grandparents, I remember my mother's parents, but my father's parents I've never saw because they never came to this country.
Tell me about your grandparents.
My grandparents lived on the Lower East Side, and I traveled all alone on the L to go visit them on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And that's where I learned more whatever I know from my grandfather.
What'd your grandfather do?
I think my grandfather was a tailor, if I remember, but I don't remember him ever working.
Good job. What you spent Shabbos with the whole weekend?
Huh? I used to, during the summertime, I used to spend the weekends down there.
What do you remember about it?
They were wonderful people, that's all. I mean, they always loved us. They loved my parents. They loved my siblings. And they were good to us. My parents worked hard. It was during the Depression years. They were in a little candy store in Black Harlem, where I grew up. I didn't grow up with any whites. I grew up with blacks until I was 13 years old. And they worried about us like all parents worry about their children. We moved to the Bronx from one place to another, not too often, but that's where we grew up. My bar mitzvah was down at my grandfather's little shul on the east side. And unfortunately, my parents couldn't attend because they were in business and had to be in the store. And then they had a party at my grandma's house. Just, you know, the family getting together. Not like today. I want to send a message to Ben that he has wonderful parents and he has wonderful grandparents, and that he should take care and have good health. And if he has good health, everything else will take care of itself.
My name is B. Lieberman. It used to be Goldfarb because that's the same name that Gladys had.
And where were you born?
I was born in the Bronx.
When were you born?
Excuse me, what year?
When?
1917.
And your birthday is?
December 19, 1917. I'm 84 years old.
And you live now?
I live in Cranford, New Jersey.
And you've always lived in the city?
No, actually, from the Bronx. My parents were in business in a stationery store in Harlem, and I grew up and went to school in Harlem.
And then the family moved?
Well, when I married, we were living, we eventually, when I was going to high school, moved to the Bronx, and I finished in the same school as Colin Powell, Morris High School.
Okay. Tell me what it was like growing up in the Bronx.
Well, I didn't move to the Bronx until I was around 14 years old. And I graduated from high school when I was 15.
15?
15.
That's a little young, isn't it?
It is a little young.
All right.
I went to Hunter College, and after I graduated, I couldn't get a job because it was bad times. And I worked for the Department of Correction. I worked in the Women's House of Detention down in 8th Street, New York City. It's a women's prison. And by the time I was married to the most wonderful person in the world,
His name?
Hi Lieberman.
And how did you meet?
How did I meet him? My aunt had a farm up in the Catskills, and his family also came to the farm, and that's where I met him. Do you know the word mensch?
Yeah?
He was a mensch. Not only a mensch, he was a very bright person, and wonderful aims in life, and just a very unusual person.
What did he do?
Well, he was a history major in school. He graduated from City. He got his master's degree from Columbia. You know what a Malamed is? A scholar? Okay. But an unusual person. Yes, I have 3 daughters.
Okay.
I was sitting near one of them. And I have, that's my oldest daughter.
That's Phyllis?
Phyllis, right. And Phyllis has 3 daughters. One of them is married. The second one is going to be married at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And
Later this
they're,
year?
huh?
When is she getting married?
She, the end of August. And the 2 little children that were running around were my little grandchildren, great-grandchildren, excuse me.
Right. That's cousins.
Huh?
Those are the cousins?
No, they're not cousins. Well, they're cousins of the,
Tell me, so your husband taught, and
well, he didn't teach. He had like the rest of us, he had taken the exams for teaching, but he had they were very, very fussy. He got like 100 on a subject matter, but when it came to the speech part, most people had the New York accent or something, so he didn't make out on the speech. So he flunked because of the speech.
and he worked as, what did he do?
He worked for the government. He worked for the federal government. He worked for the War Labor Board and then the National Labor Relations Board. And he was one of these people that lost his job because of his ideas. He was completely innocent. Take my word for it. I worked, when we moved to Washington just before the war, before World War II. That's where Phyllis was born. And he worked for the government, I worked for the government.
What did you do?
I worked as a, oh God, they had different levels.
What department?
Like I worked for the, oh God.
Okay, well, that's all right. Did you enjoy enjoy your work?
I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the work. I was my husband was in the Navy, and I was Phyllis was a year old when he went away, and he came back after 2 years, and it wasn't easy, but I wasn't the only one doing that. That was the name of the game.
When he came back, where did you live? Stayed in
Well, we were in Washington for about a year, I think until Phyllis was about 4 years old, and then we moved to Boston, because that's when he worked for the National Labor Relations Board. And my other two daughters were born in...
Their names are?
Well, Judy had her PhD in physics, and she did her postgraduate work in physics, and then at age 30 she decided to become a physician, and she's now the head of a research lab connected with Harvard. That's where she went to medical school. And my other daughter is the head of the New York Civil Liberties Union.
Her name is?
Donna. And you can go ahead.
No, it's just they're only Phyllis is here.
Phyllis is here, yes, and Judy and Donna are not.
Are they married? Children?
They're married. Judy has two sons. One goes to school in Case Western.
His name is?
Eric.
Okay.
And Paul, the oldest one, is in his second year at Harvard.
Her husband's name is?
My husband is no longer around. Oh, excuse me. Ed. Ed is a lawyer.
And the last name?
Greer. But my daughters go under the name, under Lieberman.
All right. And your other daughter, she married?
Yes, well, she's not married, but she's got, she has two children, and they're married except for the paper.
Okay. And the children's names are?
Isn't it terrible? Guy, who goes to Columbia, and he's in his second year. He's been on the varsity soccer team since he was a freshman, and he's a wonderful youngster. They're all wonderful. And Liana, well, Liana used to sing with the Metropolitan Opera Children's Chorus, and she's very interested in the performing arts. Well, I think they're all wonderful. I was just going to say, I paint. I've been painting since I retired from teaching, and if anybody said anything about my painting, I always said my best creation were my children, and I didn't even do that alone. I certainly think, I thought he did a terrific job today. I've seen him in action before, and I think his parents are very, very proud of him, and they have every good reason to be proud of him.
My name is Ann Hosansky.
And you were born where?
I was born in New York City.
When?
I'm not going to tell you when.
What's your birthday?
September 4th, Virgo. My parents were Ada DeBear and Abraham Lishman. My maiden name was Lishman. My father came from upstate New York, Elmira. My mother was born in London, England. I had marvelous British grandparents. I grew up the first 7 years in New Jersey, and then I lived in New York.
And tell me what, you grew up in the 30s, 40s? Tell me, what was it like growing up? New York City?
Well, New York was very different, very different then. When I was pregnant with my first child, we walked clear across the city in the middle of the night, and you could do that then. Certainly you couldn't do it now. Norman is one of 3 brothers. I was married, Norman is the oldest, and I was married to the second son, Mel. And Mallory, Ben's little sister, is named for Mel.
Tell me about your in-laws.
Norman's parents, I did not know his mother too well. She was ill already when I met her. I know she was a little woman, and her name was, her real name was Fredel, and they called her Fanny. And his father was Benjamin, and Ben is named for Benjamin, and my grandson is named Benjamin. My father-in-law was a dentist. His parents came from Russia, from the Ukraine, and he was the family patriarch, and everybody looked up to him, and he was enormously well-read and a very kind person. Well, I met Mel. I met him we worked together in an amateur theater group. I was still in college and he had graduated. And we met then, and I had just broken up with a boyfriend, and a friend said, I have someone for you to meet, and she introduced me to Mel, who was directing a play. He was directing, I think it was Strindberg's The Father, and I met him and I said to my friend, never in a million years, which became a family joke. So then I met Norman because Mel's mother invited me for dinner, and in those days the new style was long skirts, maxi skirts, and I got all dolled up in a maxi skirt and ballet shoes, and I'm 5'3", and Norman opened the door and he took one look at me, and the first thing he ever said to me was, short girls shouldn't wear those long skirts. But we became friends anyway. Very. Norman, I have to say that Norman and Gladys have been absolutely wonderful to me. When my husband died, they just opened their arms to me. And Norman is the brother I never had and would have loved to have had. And I remember coming here and playing with Ben when he was very little. And he had golden curls. And he couldn't say Aunt Anne. He used to say Ann. And I called him Ben, and he would get hysterical laughing. Well, I wrote one book called Widow's Walk, which was about how I put my life back together. And I have another book about how other people did this. And I've had short stories and articles published. And Ben said today about don't be afraid to be unique and follow your own path. And I'll put this so that I can't back out of it. I want to write Ben a letter about my most fulfilling moments were when I went ahead and did follow the acting and follow the writing when people said it's crazy. And I would like to see Ben keep doing this.
I'm Jules Robbins.
Okay. And where and when were you born?
I was born in April of 1930 in the borough of Manhattan in New York.
Okay. And do you know who you were named after?
No, I don't know who I was named after. Really, I don't. The Hebrew name is Yosef.
Joseph
Ben, I don't know.
Ben, well, what's your father's name?
My Robbins. Yosef Ben Robbins. That's good, close enough.
What's your father's first name?
Bertram.
Okay. Tell me about your father and your mother.
Well, my father and my mother, I was brought up by my grandmother. And my father and my mother, I really didn't know very much. And very removed from the family.
You were brought up by your mother.
By my grandmother. Ira is 5 years older than I. He's the senior member of the family.
And did he always take care of you? Was he always
No,
at all?
no, my grandmother was always, she was my parent.
No, I'm asking him. I'm asking you.
That's all right. No, my grandmother brought me up.
Story according to
According to Ira, he has all the facts. That's right. Yes, I grew up in New York, and it was very interesting, but I never really liked the city. So when I was younger, I started to work on farms in the summertime. And I enjoyed dairy farming so much, I went to ag college. And eventually I became a dairy farmer. And my brother used to come and visit me, along with his family, and we all had a great time. And we lived in a small little hamlet in Merridale, New York, which is in the Catskills. After that, back up.
where did you go to school?
I went to school in Long Island, Farmingdale University, New York State Institute of Agriculture. I had gone 2 years to CCNY first. And the reason I went to CCNY first was because I was accepted to the University of Colorado in the veterinary school, but at that time in 1947, everybody was getting out of the service and I couldn't meet the tuition. It was raised. So I went to CCNY when I applied to agricultural college, and then I went to ag college, graduated with honors, not only with honors, but cum laude. Not cum laude, but cum laude. And to this day, if the barn is still standing in Farmingdale, I have my name up on the plaque, the one who contributed most of the dairy herd of that particular college. And I crossed a Holstein with a Guernsey, and I got a Goldstein that said "new." The only Jewish farmers I knew were cattle dealers that came from Germany. And there were some poultry farmers that were also Jewish, but not too many more. In fact, I worked for a company called Agway, which had it was the second largest cooperative in the United States, and you could count on one hand the number of Jews working for them. They had 500 retail stores, and I was, I think, the only Jewish manager. Yes, I do remember my bar mitzvah. I graduated from the Hebrew Institute of University Heights. The name of my rabbi was Sam Kramer. It was an Orthodox synagogue. There were 4 people getting bar mitzvah. And when the third one I was 4th, and I could hear the old guy say, "Oh, pui, come on, get done, I'm about to go home already." And that's how I got bar mitzvah. I don't remember any celebration. I know all the people in the synagogue were glad to go home. That's the only celebration I know. After college, I was working on farms throughout the United States, and I was working as a herdsman on one of the top Guernsey farms in the United States in a town outside of Mansfield called Belleville. And in Mansfield, Ohio, I used to go to services every Friday night, and being single, everybody fixed me up. And that's how I met my wife. They fixed me up. They said, "Did you meet Robbie the farmer?" He said, "Who?" I said, "No," and we got to be good friends. She thought I was a swinger. I had a 2-tone jacket on and used to dance. Oh boy, she could never get over it. Yeah, it was a 2-tone, etc. Right. No, she came from Mansfield and I lived in Belleville, Ohio. And when I used to go take my wife out for a date, we had a creamery on the dairy, Golden Guernsey milk, and I always brought cottage cheese and chocolate milk to my future mother-in-law, and she loved me. Yeah, she saved $2 a week on the budget, and she thought I was a real mensch. We got married in 1956. We got married in Mansfield, Ohio. We have 3 lovely children, all due to my wife's upbringing, not mine. The oldest is Daryl. The middle is Arthur, and my daughter is the youngest. Her name is Andrea. And we have 6 grandchildren. We have, let's see, 4 boys and 2 girls. No, we have 6 grandchildren. 3 boys and 3 girls. Give or take one, I don't know. I would like to say, Benjamin, you seem to be a lovely young man. I'm sorry my lovely wife and I were never able to get closer to you because of proximity, but we wish you all the best in the world. And if you turn out to be anything like your parents, you'll be successful and loved by everybody.
I'm Beverly Robbins.
Okay. And you started with Beverly Robbins?
Beverly Block.
And,
B-L-O-C-K.
all right. And you were born where and when?
Troy, New York in the 1930s.
New York, what day? When is your birthday?
December 8th.
All the women will tell me at least the birthday.
All right,
Okay, all right. And Beverly grew up in where in New York?
in Troy, New York. It's part of the Tri-City area. Troy, Albany, and Schenectady, if you've heard of that.
And who are your parents?
And my mother's maiden name was Vine, and she came from Mansfield, Ohio. And my father came originally from Lima, Ohio. But they moved to New York State before I was born.
What did your father do?
He managed a department store that was part of a family business.
And so family moved back to New York?
Before I was born, my mother and father moved from Ohio to New York.
And then you moved, how did you get back to Ohio?
I went to Ohio State University, and then eventually, as my husband told you, I met him in Mansfield. My father retired, and he and my mother moved back to Mansfield.
And how did you meet your husband?
A blind date. Good friends of mine met him in Temple, and they had to match us up, and that's what happened.
And what attracted you to him when you first met him?
Well, he was tall and handsome. I almost got turned off the first date because he came to my house wearing a ridiculous suit that looked like a zoot suit with a chain hanging down. And he took me out dancing, and he made moves that I never saw before.
Yeah?
I think he thought he was a Rockette from New York. But his personality was so nice that the personality overcame his clothes, and he never wore the suit again.
Okay. He told me that you have 3 children?
Yes, we do.
And their names are?
Andrea, Arthur, and Daryl.
And your grandchildren are?
We have Shayna is the youngest. We have Max and Joshua, Rachel, Adam, and Kayla. Kayla is the oldest. And, the last 3 live in Orlando, the middle 2 in Philadelphia, and the baby Shayna lives in Virginia Beach, where we live. Yes, Benjamin, I've always thought you were special, and your personality is fabulous. But today, when I heard you say, or was it yesterday, but one of these 2 days, you said that you do your own thing, and the rabbi talked about that, and you made me especially proud because, Benjamin, I've always done my own thing too, and it's been very successful, and I know it'll work for you too. And lots of luck in the future.
Alan Robbins. Where was I born? When was I born? I was born January 22nd, 1954. Wilmington, Delaware. Elchanan. Oldest and grayest. My grandparents are, who are my grandparents?
I know
Well, let's see, Abe, Jenny, and Barney. Well, I know that. Goldfarb. And I don't know who else.
What do you remember about your grandparents?
They were old.
Did you know them very well?
Fairly well. I mean, one had they had a candy store in Harlem. And yeah, all the time. Got some candy, and it was, you know, pre-riotous times. So it was occasionally a little scary. They had to have bars on the building. So, but it was interesting. It was in the big city, you know, New York City. So I mean, it's when you're growing up in Ohio, it's a little bit different. Huh? Wilmington, Delaware. Yeah, basically, they were just born there, and then moved to New Jersey, and then from New Jersey to Ohio. We went to Columbus, the east side, on Betsy Drive. 490 maybe? Was that it? I guess, I haven't been back. In Bexley. Oh, what do I remember about my bar mitzvah? My mom told my dad that he couldn't come, and I refused because they were divorced, and I refused to have the bar mitzvah. And then she said that I would have to give all my presents back, so I had the bar mitzvah. Yeah, Rabbi Nathan Zelzer had the worst breath in Columbus. And then I remember because we had a Friday, Saturday deal between my sister and I, and then I was supposed to have to dance with her. And it's like when you were supposed to change, all the guys scattered because they didn't want to dance with my sister. This is going to make for some really good stuff. Right. It's splintering right down there. Ben, best wishes. The only reason I'm saying that is because he told me what I like to say, best wishes. So I said, Ben, best wishes. Ben, I was really concerned about you when you started taking dance lessons, when you had your ear pierced, and when you stopped growing. But I was at least glad to know that you were an athlete and you hopefully have some male hormones in you. What? What do you expect me to say? He's one of my favorite nephews. Can you imagine what it'd be like if I didn't like him?
That's right.
Ben, it was great playing tennis with you today because you allowed me the opportunity to have a victory. Unfortunately, we switched and I ended up with Aaron, and then that's a different story. So good luck to you, and I hope to be able to make it in for a basketball game or a tennis match, or watch you have your nuts cracked. I mean, watch you a nutcracker.
Marla Robbins. Marla Fiddleholtz. Yes. Canton, Ohio. In Canton, Ohio. Is December 13th. Do I have to give the year? That's good. I'm under 50. I do. I have one sister who lives in Beechwood, Ohio, named Gail Arnoff. My parents or her parents? My parents are Bernice and Irving Fiddleholtz. My father is no longer living, but he had a auto salvage yard named Independent Auto Parts. We both attended the University of Cincinnati, and I had the fortunate or the unfortunate opportunity to get fixed up one evening, and his roommate was dating one of my close sorority sisters, and we decided to go out, and he was able to match my sarcasm, so I figured he deserved a second chance. And 24 years later, I'm still giving him his second chance. I have two girls, Allison, who is 19, and Diana, who is 16, to be in 2 weeks. They're both here. They're cousins, yes, the first cousins. Benjamin, I am so proud of you. You are awesome. You have done an outstanding job. I've never seen you dance before and now have the opportunity to see you in a couple of numbers tonight. You were just wonderful. I was so impressed. Keep on being an individual just like you talked about this morning, and I think that you have always been yourself and done your own thing, and I want you to continue to do so because that makes you who you are, who is very, very special young man as of today. So the best of luck. Thanks for letting me be a part of it, and my family. We love you very much.
Marcia Hosansky-Barsman. Felicia's sister. I was born November 25th, 1954 in Irvington, New Jersey. We moved to Columbus in, let me think, January of 1963. Not really. I mean, I remember that we moved, and I remember the house that we moved into because we rented a house. But I don't really remember the actual drive because we drove. I don't remember that. But I have a great memory, so I usually remember everything. I'm the second to the oldest. Alan's 11 months older than me, and we were always in the same grade. Like Felice and Stuart are 3 weeks apart, and they're in the same grade. Alan and I are always in the same grade. So my mom really raised two sets of twins, basically. I mean, then they didn't have blended families or anything like that. There was no help in how to do all of this. But they did a pretty good job. They did a great job. Some of it was very difficult. I had probably some emotional scars because my mother died when I was 4. But basically when I look back, I don't remember the bad things. I remember all the good things. And it was fun growing up in a family of 4 people, of 4 children. My sister and I are very close. And I mean, it was fun because we were all sort of the same age, or very close in age, 2 years apart really, between the oldest and the youngest. So all of our friends were everybody's friends. And we were all in USY together. And I mean, so there were bad times, but I think I remember more the good times than the bad times. Yeah. My father's father was Grandpa Ben, and that's who Ben was named for. And he was just a very special person. He was bright. He was a dentist. He had 3 sons. He lost his wife right around the time I lost my mother, probably. And he told funny stories. We always had Seder together. He was our Seder master. He could do Chad Gadya in one breath, the last verse. He was really, I probably didn't appreciate him enough. And I see now, because my daughter's at Ohio State and she spends time with my parents, that I hope that she always has that bond with her grandparents, because we lived in Columbus and they lived in New York, and it was difficult. And my mother her parents was Grandma Jenny and Grandpa Barney, and they had a candy store, like a magazine soda shop in Harlem, and I remember going there. But my grandmother was a wonderful cook. I remember going to the apartment They had plastic on all the furniture, like everybody. And they lived by the beach when they moved. They used to live in the Bronx and then they lived in Brooklyn. And my sister and I would go and spend like a couple of weeks at a time with them. And we'd go to the beach and it was fun, you know, before the days of worrying about the sun. My grandmother had leather skin. I mean, it was gorgeous head of hair. You know, her two daughters have no hair, and my grandmother had the most gorgeous head of hair. And my grandpa Barney would stand on his head to entertain us. Maybe that's where Ben gets this. Maybe. And we'd play a game called Lump and Kiss, where you'd put your head in his lap and somebody would come and pat you on the tushy and you had to guess who it was. So, but we didn't probably spend as much time with my grandparents because they lived in New York and we lived in Ohio. So everybody thought when we moved to Ohio that we were moving so far away from everything. So, you know, Grandpa Ben would come for Passover. And we always went to New York every summer. At least that's how I remember it. Maybe it wasn't, but I remember every summer. So maybe a couple of weeks every year, and probably not even that much, but not, you know, not enough. Not enough.
You are married now?
I am. I have a wonderful husband. Oh, that's pathetic. I met him. I met him at a B'nai B'rith singles party in Cincinnati. I went to Miami. I graduated. I lived in Columbus from 76 to 79. Then May of 79, I got an opportunity to move to Cincinnati with Bank Ohio. And I had some friends who lived there from USY, and we went to some B'nai B'rith parties. And Mark and this other guy, Alan Solomon, I don't know if you know Alan Solomon, walked up to the party. And I said to my girlfriend, if everybody looks like that, we're not going to be here very long. And then I married him. Actually, it was President's Day weekend. I talked to him that whole night, and I knew. I came home the next day, and I told my mom I had met the guy I was going to marry. And I did. Hi. We got engaged 6 months later. We got married at Tifereth Israel, April 12th, 1981. And then we had our first child in March of 83. Her name's Sherry, and she was named for my mother, who just died when I was young. Her name's Sherry Beth. And we were thrilled. She's the first grandchild. And then 3 years later, we had our second child, and he was the first grandson, because we had Sherry, and then Allison, and then Jessica, and then Diana, so all girls. And then Zach came, and he was a boy, and a week later on his bris, my nephew was born. So we got a couple of boys, and we live in Cincinnati, and I work for Cincinnati Financial Corporation. It's an insurance company, and I am a systems analyst. I've been with the company since December of 81, so I've been there a long time. I worked part-time since Sherry was born, and in January just of this year, I went back full-time. And he's gonna have to do this interview. He can do it. What does he do for he works for GE, but he'll tell you that. Ben, you are, as you said today in your speech, you are unique. You are a joy to be around. I love talking to you. We had a great time when we took you to Cleveland for a Cleveland Indians game, and we're going to do that again. We have so much fun with you and your family, and you made us all so proud today, and we're so sad that it's going to be 5 more years before another bat mitzvah in this family. But you really shine. You are a shining star. Mazel tov.
Hi, I'm Mark Barsman. July 19th, 1957 in Cincinnati. Where? Who? Marvin and Barbara Barsman. They also live in Cincinnati. I have an older sister, Cindy, who is 47 years old. And she lives in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Oh, it's a sad story. Yes, I do. That I wore a canary yellow jacket and blue slacks and it looked really bad. I didn't pick it out. And the other thing I remember is we had to memorize our speeches back then, and about halfway through it I forgot where I was and got all flustered, but made it through. Grew up in Cincinnati. Came to Ohio State for college and moved back to Cincinnati and been there ever since. We met at a B'nai B'rith singles party, and the story goes that I was walking in with another friend of mine, and my wife Marcia and a friend were driving up and said to her friend, if they all look like that, we're not going to stay very long. We end up talking, and the rest is history. Yes. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Well, Ben, goes without saying, you did a terrific job. It's obvious how well prepared you were for today, and I guess the best quality that I could think of if I'm describing you to somebody is when you ask somebody how they are, you're not just asking to be polite, but you genuinely care. You're a great guy, and I'm proud to have you as my nephew.
My name is Stuart Hosansky. I am Ben's uncle. We live in Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia in Bala-Cynwyd. We have journeyed around a little bit. I started out in Pittsburgh, and sorry about that. I was born in Irvington, New Jersey in 1956, September 29th.
What's your Hebrew name?
My Hebrew name is Shimon Shapsi Nissen Ben Levi Nuchem. I was named after... Oh, no. The Shapsi Nissen is, I believe, an aunt of mine, and the Shimon, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know. I'm very embarrassed to say that, actually. I will have to find out. My father will hopefully know, and it's probably an uncle or an aunt. I grew up for my first 6 years in Ivy Hill, New Jersey, and then the next 16 years in Columbus, Ohio. I remember the drive very little. We drove in a 1956 Chevrolet Caprice, and after about 3 or 4 years of living in Columbus, the Caprice had no floor in the back. We used to have a board on the bottom of the car, and if we took the board away, we could see the road going along. It was an adventure every day, trying to put up with my brother Alan, my sister Felice, and my sister Marcia, and my parents. It was fun. Columbus is not the most exciting of towns. I don't think it's changed, but we had a good time. We were involved in the temple. Party USY, got very involved with that, and we did some trips around. That's about it.
Tell me, what do you remember about your bar mitzvah?
I remember being up on the bima. I remember the rabbi had bad breath. I also remember that as I was doing my haftarah, there was a moment when I felt almost as though my body was there and I was above my body, kind of looking out at the audience, at the congregation. That lasted for a little bit, and then I went back in. I really don't remember too much more about the actual ceremony. What? My ugly suit. That was actually another bar mitzvah. And I remember the party. I remember Friday night, my sister Felice, Ben's mother, had her bat mitzvah, and she did a little bit. And we had a party Saturday night, I think at Sayota Country Club. A lot of people there. was a good time. And that's about all I remember. Graduated from Bexley High School, started out at University of Cincinnati for 2 years. Decided that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I took off a year between my sophomore and junior year. I went to Israel for about 6 months, and I lived on a kibbutz there, a place called Kibbutz Gat. And I learned some Hebrew. I worked with the chickens, collected eggs there, traveled around Europe for about a month, and came back and decided on a bus trip to San Francisco to visit a friend of mine who was getting married, that what I most liked in life was money and history. And I realized you couldn't make money in history, so I decided to major in finance and minor in history. And then the only school I could go to at that late date was Ohio State, so I finished up for 2 years at Ohio State. Got a degree in finance and went to work at a bank in Pittsburgh called Pittsburgh National Bank. And then I met my lovely wife, Karen. And and we got married in June of, sorry. We met at the JCC in Pittsburgh. It was a singles volleyball night. Karen was being hounded by a 35-year-old single man whose come on line to her was, "Don't worry, if we go out, my mother will chaperone." So she saw me, she was ready, she was trying to get rid of him. She saw me putting my coat on, and the bright lady she was said, "Are you leaving?" And so her choice was either go with me or go with the other guy. And she said, "All right, I'll go with you." So we started talking, and we found that we had some stuff in common. We had both moved to Pittsburgh. We both were developing friends. We both had just come out from school. She invited me over for dinner. 3 weeks later, I called up because I was hungry, and I said, "Is the invitation still open?" We set a date, and I learned later that I learned that night that the day that I came over was her birthday. I found that out because she kept on getting phone calls from people, and I thought that she was just so popular. She was getting all these phone calls, and I think for dinner she made this delicious fish. She was on Weight Watchers, and she had to lose weight, and she would make fish. It was terrible. She hated it too, but that was her way to lose weight. That's how we met. And about a year and a quarter later, let me step back. About 3 months after we met, my sister Marcia, who you just interviewed, got married to Mark, who you just interviewed right before me. We came here for the wedding. This was the first time Karen had met anyone in the family. I guess Saturday night or Sunday morning, I got very sick. I was almost hallucinating for a day or two. So for Karen's first visit with my family, she spent 2 days bonding with them. And that created love on both sides. And then about a year after that, I was asked to go to Australia by my company. I told Karen. Karen said, "Well, I'll come and visit you, but I won't stay there unless we're married." So I hemmed and hawed and tried to convince her otherwise, and I couldn't. So I said, "Okay, let's get married." Her mother, of course, in about 30 seconds had the entire wedding planned. About two days after I proposed, the bank said, "Well, we've reconsidered and we're not going to send you." So I, of course, tried to get out of it. Couldn't do it. And then about a week after that, the bank said, "Okay, we are going to send you anyway." So we got married. 6 weeks later, I went to Australia. 6 weeks after that, she joined me. And we were in Australia for about a year and a half. And then we came back and we moved to Philadelphia. And I'll stop there because I don't know where you want to take this after that.
Let's start over. You have children?
We have 2 children. We have a son, Aaron, who is 15 and a half. We have a daughter, Stephanie, who is 13 and a half, going on 18. And same daughter, yes. They said we live outside of Philadelphia in a place called Ballackinwood. We moved there about 2 years ago. My son is in 9th grade at a school in Philadelphia called Friends Select. My daughter is in 8th grade at Ballackinwood Middle School. Dove Bear, you are named after your great-grandfather, Benjamin, my grandfather. And he was a wonderful man. He was very involved in learning and in traditions, and you take after him on that. You're a great tennis player, a great dancer, You have a wonderful personality. You are very, as you call yourself, unique, which you are. And I wish you all the best in life and in your continuation in what you're doing in being your own man.
Karen Hozansky. Karen Sue Pearlstein. New York, Queens. January 19th, 1958. Donald Michael Pearlstein and Patty Lee Pearlstein. Hellman, like the mayonnaise. But no inheritance, trust me. No inheritance. No. No, you married for love. Yeah, no. In spite of the fish. Made toys. He made a lot of licensed products for Barbie, Matchbox cars, WWF wrestling, Sesame Street, those kind of things. Carrying cases, party favors. When I was really young, he did dolls. But my mother didn't want us to have any dolls because she didn't want us to get spoiled. So we had no dolls, even though my father made them. Yeah. No, trust me, no. Because they would make a mess. Yeah. You don't have enough time. Yeah, very much. I have, actually one of my grandmothers is still alive. She's 94 and she lives alone. And that's my father's mother. My mother's mother died a year ago, and she was in a nursing home the last year of her life. She remembered nothing except the stock she owned. She didn't remember any of her grandchildren, her children, but she knew her investments. Yeah, absolutely. When she bought them, what she had, how many shares, she was amazing. Her husband, my grandfather, died when I was only 3 years old. But he bought me my one and only doll, so I remember him fondly. Al Hellman. And then my other grandfather, he died when I was 16. My father's father. Yeah. Aaron's. And, well, Aaron's named after my grandfather and Stuart's grandma, Jenny.
Stuart told me you graduated from school.
High school, college. High school, 1975, college, 1979. Cornell. Industrial and labor relations. And wanted to be a lawyer. Decided I wanted to go to law school, so I went into human resources instead. 20 years later, yes. And for the past 20 years. The story was accurate. We met at the JCC.
Good story?
Yeah.
This initial meeting, the first greeting to the family, how did you react to this group when you were forced to, when you got the opportunity to take care of them for 2 days?
I ignored, I liked his family very much. The only hard part was I slept in the same room as his sister Marcia the night before her wedding. And no one told me what a loud snorer she was. So I was up, it was unbelievably loud. And so I slept through that. But actually when Stuart met my family, it was just as good because he got sick when I met his family. When he went to New York to meet my family, we had to fly there. And he took Dramamine. But they didn't work on the flight. So when he met my family, he was ready to pass out. So I asked my mother what she thought of him. He said, well, he's not very exciting, is he? But now she loves him very much because she took me off their hands. So they're ever grateful. Ben, you said today you are unique, and I have to agree. You are one of a kind. You are the kindest, most artistic dancer, I know. Plus, you've got that combination with a huge sports fan. I don't always like your choice of teams, but, you know, that goes with the territory. But, yeah, can't help it. Go Yankees, though. And he's just a great kid. I'm really proud of him. And his smile lights up a room. I love just seeing him smile because he's always so happy. And he's got a nice word for everybody and makes everybody feel like they're the most important person to him. That's very special. And I wish him much happiness today and the rest of his life.
Sherry. Barsman. Where? March of '83. Cincinnati, Ohio.
What's your neighbor name?
Sarah.
Who are you named after?
My mother's mother?
Don't ask me.
My mother's mother? Sherry in English, but I don't know Hebrew. A younger brother. Mark Barsman. Marcia Barsman. Yes. Is this all on camera?
No. Yes, it's all on camera.
Can't I just say my own thing? Do you want me to answer your question? Okay, I will. What I remember about my bat mitzvah is how different times were than they are now, because our mothers let us go out of the house in completely 80s dresses with our hair looking like a mess, but the girls here look gorgeous. And I remember all my family being there and dancing, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And now you live where?
Columbus.
And you go to school?
At Ohio State.
What do you study?
Communications.
And what year are you?
Freshman. Yes.
Well, what would you like to say to your cousin's name?
Okay. Tell me when to go.
Go ahead.
First, Ben, I would like to say congratulations and mazel tov on your bar mitzvah. You did a fantastic job. And as the oldest cousin, and this sounds really cliche, but I can't believe how big you've gotten. I remember when you were little with curly blonde hair, and now you've matured so much into a young man. And I'm just so proud of you. And you really are unique, and keep going with that. And you're such a positive, outgoing person. So live your life to the fullest. I love you.
Allison Robbins.
And where were you born? And when?
St. Louis, March 27th, 1983.
Okay. And your parents are?
Alan and Marla.
And your grandparents?
Which ones? I got many. All right, we got Ira Robbins, Gladys and Norman Hosansky, Shirley Robbins. Yeah, that's all is on this side. Yeah. St. Louis. Yes. Freshman in college. University of Missouri. Go Mizzou. Go Mizzou. I did. Passover. Yeah, not that long ago. Yeah, I guess so. I do. It was nothing compared to this. Well, I was hideous looking. Compared to all these girls, we didn't look like this anymore. Yeah. These guys look a lot better than we did at my age. Don't know why they let us go out of the house at that, you know? What are you gonna do? Yeah. Sure. Ben, congratulations. I love you very much. As you know, you and I are the ones that look alike in this family, so I guess you're gonna have to come down and party with me at college. I mean, hang out. Hang out is the key word. So, feel free. Come on down anytime. They wouldn't mind. Congrats. Love you, babe.
I'm Aaron Ozansky. November 21st, 1986. In Voorhees, New Jersey. No, I moved to Philadelphia when I was about 3. Karen and Stuart? Yeah. Norman and Gladys Ozansky? Yeah. And Donald and Patty Pearlstein. My dad is a fixed income analyst or something. Analyst, yeah. Yeah. Pediatrician. Yeah. I know, I like working with kids a lot, and I thought, it would be a helpful kind of career to go on. Yeah. Freshman. Vaguely, yeah. I remember the party, and the party and the presents. That was about it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ben, you've always been a great, funny, warm guy. You really, kind of brightened up Passover Seder and everything. You really are unique. You always like to be special, be apart from everybody else, but still be part of the crowd. So I just want to say that you best of luck. You don't always have to get the sort of the roly-poly kid, so just be the best you can be.
I was born February 18th, 1984, in Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
All right. And do you remember your bat mitzvah?
My bat mitzvah, yeah, I remember that. That was January 18th, 1997. Right here with the same DJ.
Really?
Yeah, Rick Reinhardt.
Okay. And what do you remember about that night?
I don't know. I was a big loser.
Well, what would you like to tell your brother on this year's celebration?
That I love him, and he is the coolest brother ever that I've ever had. And and he's seriously like the coolest kid ever, and I don't want him to ever change and stop being unique and special and being different than everyone else, because that makes him really, really cool. And this is an awesome party, because everyone has to say that. And yeah, it was an awesome party. And I don't know. I love you.
I'm Mallory Kassoy.
You have a middle name?
Mallory Claire Kassoy.
And who are you named after?
My grandfather's brother, I think.
Okay. And when's your birthday?
November 24th, 1994.
How old are you?
7.
So, who's your favorite brother?
I only have one brother.
Tell me about it. What do you like most?
Well,
What do you like the least?
well, what I don't like,
Tell me.
well, he always calls me a butt knock, and I don't really like that.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't imagine why. All right. So, what do you call him?
Well, since he's really skinny, he's like one of the he's the skinniest of the 3, and I thought of a nickname to nickname him Skinny Bones.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever told him that?
Well, once.
Okay.
And sometimes he calls me, oh, I forget. I think it was extra credit. And since he calls me extra credit, I call him bonus points.
All right.
I don't know why he calls me that. But
Did you have fun tonight at the party?
mhm.
Did your friend have fun at the party?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Hannah.
And what would you like to say to your brother?
Well, it was such an awesome party, but when the DJ asked who's glowing, me and my friend were jumping up and down and he didn't even see us. Yeah. And I don't want him to, I don't want him to stop being himself, and I want him to just not follow the crowd, be himself, and keep his uniqueness.
I'll tell him what. Thank you very much.
I love you.
Hey everybody, it's Ben, Bar Mitzvah Kid. Well, what can I say? Weekend's over, I guess. The service was awesome. I had a great time. I don't know about you, I thought I did okay. The party was awesome. Could have been better. Awesome shirts. Look, see, we got the shirts. Everybody loves the shirts. Everything's great. Rick, the music king, truly is the music king. I just want to thank everybody, all my family, friends, anybody who supported me, you, Mr. Zax, and the other Randy, the photographer, just everybody for making this weekend possible, and my parents for making me possible, because without them and their love for each other, I wouldn't be here today. But I just want to thank everybody, and I love you all. Peace.